conscious about how because you're making this. And they were really strategic. They, for example, to Tom Holland, who plays Spider-Man, they used to give him scraps. You're going to say only this. You're going to say that. And it came to some points that he said that he didn't even knew who he was talking to. And the idea of this, it was that Tom Holland is really young, so it's a little bit hard for him to keep hush-hush on some details, so it was a way to keep spoilers from going all over. In fact, some information states that it was almost the entire crew was in this kind of methodology, so that there would have not been any spoilers. Even though there could be a few here and there, they didn't mess up the experience, and it was a really good one. It was a really epic one. I say that it's a masterpiece. It's 10 years, and it is really funny because it is more than 10 years of these films, and you can see from the start that it never had an intention to become what it is today. And it's a really similar fact that has with Game of Thrones, as I was talking earlier. When you get into season 1, it gets stuck in this kind of horses and swords, medieval kind of stuff, and it doesn't translate to the whole epic universe that we're seeing today. So the pacing between the first 2 seasons is quite slow. It is not until we get to the infamous Red Wedding incident that the Game of Thrones series starts to catch up. We have these major characters and we can kill them off at any moment. And that's the moment, the Red Wedding, it's the moment in which, even though it was on a book already, the Red Wedding is this whole incident that turns Game of Thrones to be this epic opera about this mystical world. And it turns it into this whole game changer, as The Sopranos were in their time. In The Sopranos, even the cast members, they will go on record and say that they didn't even know if they were gonna get whacked in the next episode. They didn't know if they were gonna get killed. They knew perhaps just when they get into the set, this is the official script. This is what you're gonna be doing, and because there hasn't been a network, I think, that has like wiped out so many major characters. And it started with The Sopranos. It is like you have this notion, this is the TV show, these are the main characters. Since they are the main characters, they have this whole shield that nothing will happen to them. But the thing is that with The Sopranos, that all changed. And ironically, in the second season too, because it was when I thought it was Big Pussy. I thought it was his name. It was it was actually like Tony Soprano's best friend. And I'm sorry, because at this point I'm not spoiling anything, because at this point, if you haven't watched The Sopranos, you deserve the spoiler right there. But the thing is that in Big Pussy, I think it was his name or something like that, when he got killed by Tony and the guys in the second season, the same as Game of Thrones, is that they have this charm that there's this pilot season, and the thing that how this series get to be made, they made like a pilot 3-episode montage. That's I don't know how they are working directly these days, but most of them kind of work this way. Up until Entourage, for example, you used to have from your pocket at least to make a pilot and a 2-episode montage. It didn't have to be with with the cast that you wanted. You could use like anyone that could resemble the part. The thing is that you want to present a visual conception of the product. And the case of many series on HBO, I think in the case of Game of Thrones, proves a little bit hard. So they have to go with the whole horses, mountains, and I'm chopping people's heads off. That was the first season. It was more like medieval to politics, to put it in a way. Mix up the story of Persians and that didn't. It was like Persians and Romans and actually more of the medieval but upper class, like the people that were around England and France at that time, at all times, and it worked. It worked as a charm because it was a really, well, let me rephrase that. It was really a risky take because it established the first two seasons, even though the pacing could be kind of slow. When I went back to rewatch them, and I'm not talking about Game of Thrones right now, I want to rewatch them because they had a value. And you understand that these two first seasons, they established the tone of the show. They established the fact that it doesn't matter if you are a main character now, you can be killed. And what it happened later on in the series, I think it was season 5. After season 5, I'm not going to spoil it for people who haven't seen it. But in season 5, there was this one of the main characters that is actually carrying the show. This character, he got killed. Even though he got brought back again. And I could be talking about a lot of characters because there's a lot of characters in Game of Thrones who die and come back to life. Not all, but a lot. So they took the bar like deep space, way beyond our galaxy levels type. That's how high they raised the bar with this one. And the thing is that in the case of Game of Thrones, they have an easier path to create whatever it is. It is most of the rumors are pointing out to a possible prequel. And it will be really interesting to see worlds in which dragons are not only tree but like roam like freely, and it is something normal, and people are like just chill. Like there's a dragon, and it's like right here in Puerto Rico we have a bird that it is like a hawk. We call it a water wow, and we have heard so many stories. It is also an endangered species too. So we have heard so much stories when we were little that when we heard the water wow, it's like, oh, you listen to that, it's a water wow. But it's just like that. It's really a great feeling to see that an animal that is so threatened by possible extinction still is alive, and it brings a lot of joy, but it brings like this moment, like snappy joy like that. And trying to visualize a world in which dragons are flying, roaming freely, and everyone's like, "Shit, oh, they don't even notice the dragons." I think, and it's the world of Viseria, because the thing is that George R. Martin has expanded this universe in a way that we're only seeing the story on Westeros. We're only seeing what is going down there, what are the threats there, what is affecting that area. Even though one of the storylines inside Game of Thrones gave us a broader look to the entire world that surrounds Westeros, and you know that that is not only Westeros. There were these many ancient civilizations that stood even greater than the Targaryens at one point. So in that matter, HBO and Game of Thrones, they have a better chance of survival and making a great show. It is on do or die basis, because the main challenge that Game of Thrones producers have is the fact to keep it on that bar. They don't have to go immediately in a new series and raise that bar in season 1. They don't have to, because they, even if the show airs in like 5 years, they will still have hype. Let's not forget that at this moment, this is one of the most expensive shows on television today. This is one of the most well structured television shows in history of mankind on the entire planet. This is the execution of the script is actually marvelous. It is even really hard when you try to see Game of Thrones cast members try to interact in another movies, in another projects. It's just so they have been so embedded to these characters, to the development of so many layers on these characters, that it's really, really, really hard to move them of the typecasting area. With the possible exception of Lena Headey, who plays Cersei Lannister, who has played Sarah Connor, who has also played Mama in the cult classic Dredd. Lena Headey is, as well as Peter Dinklage, they're this kind of actors that they cannot do wrong. They keep implementing, because Lena Headey is really an amazing. Really an amazing example. And I hope that in the prequel they made, it is really rare. It is a long shot. They will try to get a whole entire new cast. But if they could, get some sort of a cameo or make a character in which Lena Headey, because that woman, even though she is one of the most soft-spoken women in the world, she has played a wide array of characters. She played Sarah Connor, so if you know the Terminator franchise, which is John Connor's mother, and she has played also the screaming and scared wife in, I think it was the first Purge movie. She has played two unique and marvelous and beautifully. I'm sorry if I mistake the verbal expression on that one, but two of the most powerful, badass female villains ever put either to film and television, and she has the crown of both of them, which is Mama from the cult classic Dredd, and in the other one would have been obviously Cersei Lannister. So it would be good, but it's a long shot. It's just like a fan wish of mine. But they have so many ways they could go to prequel. They could go after the events of which what we are seeing right now. They could go anywhere, and they don't have to get, like I said, they don't have to get a first season right. They could go a first season of people actually talking shit and remembering or foreseeing the future, and they can do that really comfortably because they are aiming at another platform in the same world. As for the MCU, which is not on the same shape, even though I don't have nothing wrong to say about Avengers Endgame, I would say it exceeded my own expectations in many, many ways. But the thing is that it exceeded them so perfectly well that it has led this question on my mind. Because in the case of Game of Thrones, they have many ways in which they can set the bar even higher. They have it. The only way that Game of Thrones fades out is that the fan base gets bored with it. So they have challenges, but they're aiming at another show, just that show. So if they fail, they have an entire season to crash and burn a little, see what the fans want now versus what the fans do not want, and try to make a merger and an amazing storyline that as they have always done. But they are only jumping to another TV show. Instead, for the MCU, is jumping for another phase that does not only include movies as these three previous phases did, that there were only movies, perhaps some tinies and some cartoons, but nothing really big, everything concentrated on the films. Now, with the actual move of Disney of creating this Disney Plus platform, there have been strong rumors of many of the shows that could be making it to the platform, and this is when I start getting scared. And let me put this out on a small parenthesis here. I am originally a DC fan, okay? But with time, I had to accept that Marvel movies